Souse us therefore in the powdering tub of thy mercy,
that we may be tribes fit for the heavenly table.
Welcome, Meatsmiths. You are listening to a Meatsmith harvest, restoring husbandry to prosperity
by means of the traditions of our fathers. This dialogue picks up where we left off in our last episode's conversation. You can find part 1 on our website, YouTube, or iTunes. If the content resonates with you, please consider supporting our team by going to patreon.com/Meatsmith and donating a small monthly pledge. This goes directly toward more free media headed your way. Thanks for staying tuned for part 2. Back to what we were talking about. You were talking about the pigginess of the pig.
Mm-hmm.
And human beings being the only, because we have intellects and wills, we're free. And so that kind of simultaneously throws a chink in this created order, but it also is the way that we are ordered to fix this world.
It's part of it. It's part of it.
Actually, I shouldn't say we don't fix it. God fixes it, but we're supposed to be part of the process. Mm-hmm. He wants us part of the process.
Yeah.
So.
And another part of this is I discovered, and I think I've mentioned it before in the podcast, I highly recommend everyone go there and binge the the just flowing tones of the Arkansas drawl of Gearld Fry. Uh-huh. And it's so great. He's just got a few videos on YouTube, and they've been on there forever, but they're treasures to me. But he is a man who operated under the assumption that all knowledge comes through the senses and that you can know the nature of a cow. And you can know it. Uh-huh. And I know that doesn't sound like a crazy thing, but that actually unhinges all of our modern abuses, I think. If you can, because we tend to think that either reality is unknowable, or it doesn't exist, or it's too ambiguous, or it's totally pliable to our interpretation. We make it what we want it to be. Mm-hmm. And
we just heard that.
The 2-year-olds tried to do that too, actually. They try to make reality what they want it to be. And the thing is you run it against reality, and then you end up planting monocrops because you think all you want is, whole cities full of soy. And so that's what you do. Mm-hmm. But you're actually running up against reality, against natural law, against even the nature of a soy plant. So you have to genetically modify it to do what you need it to do. And, Gearld Fry, on the other hand, like every pre-modern, without the heady, infinite progress of technology that just goes to your head real fast, he knows that you can perceive a cow and you can understand the nature of the cow, meaning those things that span across cows in general. And to him, because he is a God-fearing man, to him, that is, you are actually witnessing the Creator's intent on nature. Okay. And its order.
And that's important.
And so it's so basic, it's so simple, and I think, particularly if you are not a God-fearing individual, you regard it as very silly. But what that means is, that there is a way that is ordered towards the order of creation, rather than against it, to raise cows. Mm-hmm. And that's Gearld Fry's worldview. This is actually the divine plan for cattle. Just so interesting. It's so simple. But in any case, he's operating on this assumption that you can understand a cow literally by looking at it. Uh-huh. You can understand how much butter fat it will have, which has direct relation to how well it will calve, how strong its calves will be. You can detect how fertile it will be. If it's a bull, how many cows he will be able to impregnate, which is a big deal if you're building a herd. And if it's a cow or a heifer, how easy her birthing will be. You can deduce how tough her meat will be, how tender the flesh of a cow will be.
Yeah.
You can look at by how their endocrine system works, how healthy their hormones are, which all relates to their fertility. By detecting where their hair whorl is on the back of their neck and the shape of their cannon bones. It's incredible. And this is all old knowledge. It's all pre-industrial knowledge. And, almost pre-industrial.
Okay.
Gearld talks about it as things that he just sort of like miraculously snatched from the annals of time before it just was forgotten into oblivion. He just kind of found it. He even discovered some people that were trained by some people way back. Was able to work with them on it. But it all falls under the heading of basically linear measurement. You can actually measure the proportions of a cow. And come to find out, when you do that, you can select for cattle that can grow better on high fiber, supposedly low quality forage, and actually fatten on grass and be tender. So it's really remarkable, and it's based on the cow fulfilling its nature and you being a docile having a docile understanding of their nature. And so he says, the key is to have a masculine bull. And it's so great the way he talks about it. Like you need your bulls to be masculine. You need your cows to be feminine, because it directly relates to their productivity and their reproduction. And so you use your bull, you arrange your herds patriarchally. He is the keeper of all the genes, which is a different way than it's done now. And it's done now contrary to nature, because we, way back had a surplus of grain. And it's not that we discovered that, cows taste good when we fatten them on corn. That's not how this happened. According to Mr. Fry, it's, hey, we have a surplus of corn. What do we do with it? I know. Let's feed it to all the cows. And so they drove the cows into the stockyards in Chicago and fed them the surplus of corn. The goal was disordered. It was not to raise good, healthy cattle and to feed people good meat and to build the pasture. The goal was to get rid of the excess corn. And as you know, we continue as a rule to produce excess corn. That was the disordered end. And so consequently, we preferred bulls that stayed in the feedlot longer because they got rid of more corn. They got rid of the surplus. So that actually became the preference. And that's what we started selecting for, which results in a bull that can't forage. He can't make too many cows. He's literally not a masculine bull.
And behavior temperamentally too.
And temperamentally, yes, that's the crazy thing about it. You can see in the animal kingdom these icons of virtue, because this is the beautiful thing. Like when you think about actually putting calipers and measuring tapes on a bull, you immediately think, like, how are you doing that? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Not a problem if the bull is masculine, because the more testosterone he has, he'll be shorter for one. So the more testosterone a bull has, he'll actually be shorter because testosterone inhibits long bone growth. So he'll be a short, compact, boxy guy if he is more masculine, if he has more testosterone. And also, he will be calm. That's like an icon of meekness. He is a monster. He is a powerhouse, and he could flatten, a pink-skinned, bone sack of a human in seconds. But he is not inclined to do that.
He's like Ferdinand.
He has control of himself because he has more testosterone. That's actually why. So they get more antsy and threatening, and you know, when they're compensating for something, and you know, when they have a weakness. So yeah, it's really neat just to see how much you can discern from the nature of a cow. If you observe them as a being that exists, you know, in a natural order with a particular end, rather than just, you know, a cog in an economic wheel to generate cash flow, which tends to be how we view all of these things. They are extracted. They're resources to be extracted. They're not part of an order or even a hierarchy of being. They're just resources. And that's contrary to the natural order. So I'm a big fan of Gearld Fry, and you can watch him measure cows on YouTube to your heart's content.
Yeah.
I love it.
So you were listening to him at the same time having conversations with Mr. Griffith. And I think you were kind of arriving at this whole family unit idea in the bovine world too, right?
Yes.
Like if you've got your family or your herd kind of ordered in this hierarchical way.
That's a good point. Yeah, I think that there's another book that I haven't read yet that I think goes into that, but there's an animal, you know, he's a behavioralist. He observes animals, particularly herding animals. And it seems like, from what I've heard about it, having not read it, that herd is a relatively low resolution picture of what's going on in a group of animals.
Oh, okay.
It's pretty explicitly, I think it's also explicitly Darwinian. We have the survival of the fittest necessitates that we view herds as a certain way. And, you know, that's kind of a presumption rather than a observation. So it lacks a little science, because the closer you look at a group of animals, the more you see. And I think what this guy makes the point is that the more essential grouping of livestock or of any animal is the family group. That's more essential. That's where you see most of the relational interaction. And that makes sense to me. I see that in pigs. So again, my mind immediately goes to, well, that's amazing and strangely obvious. Like, why didn't I know that? If you actually did that, if you were to go along with the family being the irreducible unit in your livestock practices, if that accords more with the natural order, you will have unexpected benefit. You will have unanticipated, you know, smoothness, because you're not going against.
I can't help but think that it will affect how you select too. Your male, your masculine bull. If you're choosing in a Darwinian, like, survival of the fittest, then what is fittest? Like, that's kind of an interpretive move. Fittest might be the meanest, biggest, tallest, more kind of unstable, you know, but really muscular in a certain way, maybe leaner. I don't know. It's kind of like up to the fad of the day. Whereas if you're selecting for a stronger family unit, then you're going to pick maybe the bull that's in the background, kind of like pigs. Like you've talked about, the boss pig is not always the most brazen in your face.
Or the biggest.
Yeah,
I was going to say that.
Sorry, I didn't mean to take it.
No, you didn't take it. We are thinking the same thoughts.
Okay.
Yeah. Because the pigs don't pick the fittest pig.
Yeah,
They do not. Almost never.
Or maybe they just think that fit, they define fit in a different way.
It's different.
Yeah.
And the best that because I've tried to define it, and it's hard. I've even seen the pig that struggled in its youth. So for a little pig that was a little sick and got a little behind, but then bounced back, I've seen that pig be the boss in a herd of pigs many times. And they're smaller than everyone. And I don't think it's that the other pigs treat that one better because it's fragile. Like, no, once that pig dies, they'll just eat it. But so it's not that. But there is something about it. And it comes back to the fact that pigs are always obedient to their nature. So they're not going to break the rules of their hierarchy at all. So you can actually observe it with a high degree of clarity. You actually really see it because everything they do is ordered towards that. Especially how they eat and what order they eat, particularly who has access to the food and when and who has to compete for it. But the boss pig has uncontested access to the food. No one even attempts to take it. And so this definition of the fittest pig and the sounder, it's not a virtue of this individual pig being super robust and, able to replicate itself over and over again with the most offspring. It's actually a function of the family unit. The other pigs respect that pig. That's why he gets uncontested access, because the other pigs could revolt. They could rebel. There's just one. Yeah. They could totally just supplant him. And I know that even happens, in the animal kingdom sometimes, but not without reason. And so that pig's fittingness is actually, it's more complex than that. And it's kind of hard to define. Like, I'm always like, what makes you alpha? And it's like, you're just the best pig. Like, if you ask the other pigs, they'd be like, yeah, she's just the best. Yeah. Or he, like, I don't know. It's not, it takes more observation to really see why that one.
It's good.
Why is that one on top?
So it's not survival of the fittest, it's survival of the fittingest.
The fittingness, yes.
What is most fitting?
Altogether fitting and proper that pig be the boss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And it could be like the same thing, goat herds are also incredibly complex. And the queen mother goat, she'll be the leader, and they all follow her eating habits. All the other goats. It's essential that goats browse because they have more surface area in their gut than any other ruminant, I believe. And they're just more susceptible to parasites. And it's important that they create the right fermentation chamber with the right forages in their gut. And so it's a big deal what they eat. You can't just feed them garbage. Like, they don't eat tin cans. And so they will follow the mother. And she will eat a very certain way, and they'll follow her in that eating pattern. Which is why if you are the one that feeds the goats, they will follow you too. Because I think they identify the source of food, the one that guides us to food. That's the boss goat. We follow that one. And even that, like, that's more than survival of the fittest. I think that's, if at the very least, that is a low resolution understanding of a group of animals. And I think that we could gain a lot more understanding of their nature and how to manage them if we looked a little bit closer. Yeah. And we thought about the family unit being more essential. And you'll see this even in predators, like they have incredibly ordered hegemonies. They're not just out there like mating and fighting all day. It's like, no, most of the pack is celibate.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
And they don't have a problem with that. That's they are following the rules. And the lead of the pack are the ones creating puppies. Even coyotes, they're only creating puppies when their population has been depleted. Right. It will actually trigger in the females to get pregnant. So again, the familial, I just think that is a more essential unit.
The patriarch of the animal, whatever herd you're talking about, is not like this lusty kind of drooling kind of drool bag. Like he's got control of himself a little bit, or like he waits for the proper season, or when the females are receptive, or like there's an order to that too.
Yes, it's all ordered. Yeah. I'm a little confused by goat bucks.
Yeah. That might be the exception to the rule.
What the heck,
I don't know.
goats? What is going on?
Can we get a little under control? Maybe we've selected poorly.
Could be.
Maybe they're not like supposed to be like that.
Good heavens. It warrants a little more observation.
Yeah.
And someone's asking, it's Gearld Fry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, not Joel. Gearld Fry.
Gearld, yeah.
And Steve Campbell is the guy that carries on his legacy, as far as I can tell.
Uh-huh.
And I think Steve is in Idaho.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Because you first stumbled upon him or came across him in North Carolina. Was it North Carolina?
I met him at the Devon Cattle Conference.
Uh-huh.
And he was like just speaking this. It looked, sounded like this wizardry, this knowledge he has of cows. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's not wizardry. It's not magic. It is careful observation. Mm-hmm. And the belief that you can actually perceive with your senses the nature of an animal.
Yeah. So in my little type A brain, I have to like define things. So in like a natural law version of the world, Gearld and kind of the way Gearld Fry understands things, nature follows the author's intent. Mm-hmm. There is an author, first of all, and that is God. Mm-hmm. And so we have to detect what that order is, what that intent is, and steward that, and like picking up on cues that we perceive.
Yeah, it's not just like, oh, you think you understand the pigness of a pig. That's really just your interpretation.
Yes. Which is
you're
natural.
just imposing that on the pig.
That's right. And that's what a naturalism does, as opposed to natural law, is we become the interpreters, and we can make exceptions be the law. And that can either go in a capitalistic excess or a communistic excess, like an overly scientific way, like really reductionistic, materialistic, positivistic way, like big ag. Or that can go in the way that we're starting to detect, which is weird. It's just sort of, we need to process it more, but like this like pagan primitive kind of naturalism where we're not ready to throw God off. Like we know there's a supernatural, but it's more like a neo-pagan spiritualism. That's like a naturalism that we find we still are like we're still like in charge. Yeah. And nature, like nature is the thing itself rather than, again, like that next stage.
Transcend it. Yeah.
That's sort of like just what I'm wrestling with. Yeah. Differentiating between natural law versus naturalism, because they both use the word nature, and I think it's just really important to be clear with our definitions. Yeah. Because we can run into people who are maybe using the Christian language, but they're kind of post-Christian, and we're just like, we're not. Sometimes we can be skipping past each other.
Yeah.
The hunt is up.
How many people do you know you would say truly share your back to the land values? Or your passion for home-scale craft meat curing? Or simply love the multifaceted beauty of a good meal as obsessively as you do? Maybe a handful? At farmsteadmeatsmith.com, we've created an online community of hundreds of omnivores from around the world, and a platform for them to learn from and inspire one another. In addition to our major semi-annual hands-on educational event, The Family Pig, here at our Pacific Northwest homestead, over at farmsteadmeatsmith.com, we host a purely digital membership program with an archive of film and textual resources years deep now, for you to dive deeper into your food journey with. And both our classes and online program include access to our private community Facebook page for your continued education and fellowship. We've been told that our classes are life-changing and the membership program unparalleled in quality and quantity. To get a taste of our education, search farmsteadmeatsmith.com and our YouTube channel for our free films, conversations, and downloads. Explore how we and other meatsmiths across the globe may best come alongside you, putting the knife in your hand, article by article, and comment thread by comment thread, and can support you in building your home around the harvest. Please head to farmsteadmeatsmith.com today.
Yeah, and I think it just depends on, at the very least, which tradition you're coming from, because even a lot of the Native American spirituality here, there's the Great Spirit, which is transcendent in most of them. And of course, they're all super regional and super idiosyncratic in many cases, but that was one common element. And the Christian understanding is that there was, you see this right in Genesis, is that we, after rebellion against the Creator, which is just such a pregnant concept, like rebellion against the Creator and his intent for the created order. We just keep doing that. In response to that, we are bound by justice to return to him that thing that we have defaced, including ourselves. And you can definitely see, like, there is a way to do that and a way not to. And that's the original story of Cain and Abel.
Yeah.
Cain's sacrifice was not pleasing. Abel's was. And there is then, you have this pre-Noahic, pre-fall religion of rendering justice to the Creator whom we have, from whom we have received everything, and from whom we have rebelled. And there was a way to do that, to render thanks, and a way not to. And it's kind of that difference between Cain and Abel. And then after, it seemed to always involve animal sacrifice. The acceptable ones always involved shedding of blood. And so you can even see how in a lot of the paganism, they are hearkening back to that original pre-Noahic, faith in some ways, insofar as they retain some of those truths about the nature of things. But the Christian thing is definitely, it's a matter of natural law is not just a human interpretation imposed upon an indifferent material substrate that has no form and void except for what our interpretation gives it. It is actually the intent of the Creator revealed to us in the nature of things.
Yeah, because that's also a difference too, is natural law will use nature, material, to make a sacrifice with. Like, it's not just like this ethereal way we worship. Like, I'm just thinking of, like, the Eastern version of meditation, where you just sort of like get outside of yourself and you sort of escape nature altogether. It's not that. It's and you also don't like exploit nature too, which is like what the overly positivistic modernism has done, which so many of the people we come across in our classes, the followers that watch this podcast, like, they've rejected the modernism that we have as well. In the sense of, like, overly scientific
exploitation of the natural resources.
And they're seeking authenticity. They seek even things like ritual. Like, they know there are many of them would admit that there's a supernatural, and so they're trying to tap into that, and using nature too, which is, but see, where natural law differs from naturalism is like the engagement with and celebration of nature. End of story. The buck stops there. Like, that's the telos. That's the end.
Whereas natural law, I think, it uses nature as an icon to leap beyond itself. So we're not like escaping nature, but we're not exploiting it.
Yeah.
It is the creation, but it is not the creator. Whereas like in the pagan version, it kind of conflates creation with creator.
Yeah.
And you end up kind of worshiping nature in a way, which always ends up, you still can't escape exploitation that way. Someone's getting exploited that way. And I don't know, I'm kind of going round and about right there.
Yeah.
But that was another difference I was trying to pinpoint between the two.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's interesting because they all have shadows of so many meanings. And when you think of the Christian framework, it's inscribed in the architecture and the shape of a medieval town. And just like, that original break with the creator, that rebellion has to be, in justice, Abel offered a lamb. So, which was a sacrifice that was costly to him. And we could guess that maybe that's why it was acceptable. It was actually costly. It's a big deal as opposed to some fruit. And that's a token of it's like a gesture of gratitude and repentance, literally trying to repair the rebellion, the break from the creator and the order that he had intended, because he did make us free. And so we chose to rebel. And then, so you see that fast forward all the way into a medieval town, and at the center of everything is the Lamb of God. And that is what the sacrifice of the Mass is. And that's why the church, and at the center of the church, the altar, at the center of the altar, the tabernacle, and the center of the tabernacle, the Lamb of God, the real presence of Christ. That is why that is a sacrifice. The Mass is a sacrifice in reparation. And the only difference is that when you're sacrificing the Lamb of God, when he sacrifices himself, Christ, it's super abundantly just and satisfying for the rebellion. And that, those are the concentric circles that grow out from there. Out to then the marketplace, the town, the farmsteads, and everything out there.
Yeah. And so also natural law is inherently hierarchical. Like you have those either concentric circles or pyramid, like you understand this is creation, this is not creation. that would be God. That was the whole point of Genesis too.
Right.
Was the Judeo-Christian thing was there's sun and moon and stars and sea and animals and fish and those are not God. But there is but creation actually in that version was getting more and more complex. And it ended with woman. But
and ultimately that's why we the most fundamental. I love that Dietrich von Hildebrand quote that the most elemental gesture of reverence is a response to being itself, and specifically typified in the Catholic Mass. And it is literally that thing which repairs and reorders creation, because creation was designed in that way. And that is the crazy assertion from a purely naturalistic perspective of the Christian era and the Christian faith, is that the most important thing you could do is leave the field, leave your home, your place of work, and actually go to Mass. That is the most important thing. And heaven and earth and time and space will move so that you can do that, and that actually orders when you go back out.
Yeah, that's a wild idea. Yeah.
It is. It's crazy.
It's
crazy.
not utilitarian.
No.
Yeah. I mean,
but it's the most pragmatic thing you can do.
And where do you learn? There's a school where you learn how to do that, and it's called the family meal. Yeah,
right.
It's the table in the home, because
Yeah.
every meal, let me tell you, that's a sacrifice.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then it's like teaching you how we give thanks
Mm-hmm.
to Almighty God
Yeah.
for all the things and the fruit that we reap from our fields.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah.
Arriving at this idea that God restores his own creation.
Mm-hmm.
So we may think that we're in charge because we're part of it,
Mm-hmm.
but through the liturgy itself, that actually is what is restoring. That is what is feeding the world
Mm-hmm.
and rebuilding topsoil at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and not exploiting the laborers.
Mm-hmm.
It's true. It's a wild idea, but like...
Yeah. Well, yeah, you can think about it really practically. Like, who would you want to suffer with if you had to suffer? Which you will. We all will. Who do you want to suffer with? And I think if things are going well, that would be your family, because they can help you.
Mm-hmm.
They have your best interest in mind. And the family has this... And why? Why would you pick that? And I think it's because they have... Possibly, it's the most likely place to find true love, self-sacrificial, like actual charity,
Mm-hmm.
where they will, no matter how bad you are,
Mm-hmm.
you know, they will care for you. They'll take care of you, no matter the cost to themselves. And that, on a natural plane, that's why the family is the essential unit.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's obligations of charity there and actual natural bonds that encourage them and lead to them. And that to really go, you know, all the way with someone who is suffering and to tend to them, even to your own, you know, you read about these saints who are like, you know, Saint Damien goes to a leper colony, and right when he gets out of the boat, you know, he grabs the hand of a leper, and the leper helps him out, and the leper is overcome because you don't touch lepers skin to skin. Saint Damien does, and he's with them and he loves them with supernatural charity, such that he gets leprosy, of course, and dies. But what you know, that bond, that charity expressed to those people suffering from such a horrible disease, that's on a level of the supernatural. That's not, you know, that's beyond nature. That's beyond survival of the fittest as an ultimate value or natural function. And that grace, that supernatural life comes to the family from the sacraments, from the liturgy, explicitly.
And that seems like such a principle or a value, a virtue, I guess I say value, a value that, if I'm hearing correctly, a lot of our listeners, a lot of the people that come to our classes, they're not afraid to suffer.
Yeah.
In the physical realm, at least. Whereas I think, and that's a value that we've shed, maybe, that we are not wanting to receive from our parents and our grandparents, from those generations who were trying to make a more comfortable life, but we've seen the compromises in other kinds of suffering, maybe, to have those luxuries, and it's not a value for us to not have to sweat to not have to work a little physically for my food, for my business or whatever. And I think that I was trying to think of suffering itself. Like you and I, we don't even suffer really, but like, you know, we've shed certain comforts. We'll say that, like creaturely comforts we've shed. But we're not suffering interiorly. Like in Saint Damien, he didn't suffer interiorly. I believe he died from leprosy.
Yeah.
Right? But like the saints, like they suffered physically, just like so many of our people are willing to put the extra work in, you know, and there's sort of, there's people that suffer better than others in different ways.
Yeah.
But
I'm
like,
not very good at it.
Yeah, no, I'm not good at it either. Just like, but like, I just think that that's a value that we can suffer exteriorly, but not be suffering interiorly at all. And that's a value of following the natural law to its logical end. And I don't know if that exists in naturalism very much.
Yeah.
You know, both manifestations of it, of naturalism that I've talked about, but yeah,
I don't know.
There's more to unpack there, I know.
Yeah.
The family, I think that's where I was going with that, actually. The family is a good school of thought.
It is.
For learning how to suffer in appropriate ways, to mortify, to let go of your will and giving over to God's will, the author, because he's shaping us ultimately. Yeah. Like he's farming us.
Right, in the family. And that really does happen. Like it almost just happens, sort of.
Yeah.
It does help to cooperate with it rather than work against it. But absolutely. I mean, Wallace, our oldest, and Johnny, basically we're constantly calling upon them to deny themselves all day. Just sheer practicality. Yeah. Just so the little kids don't, injure themselves. Like just so we could get to lunch. Like really basic. And when you have these 1,000 tiny, trials throughout the day, that they just require this self-denial every moment. Wallace can't go make 20,000 paper airplanes and throw them for 3 hours, which he is all about. We actually need him to watch his sister. Your siblings are your greatest burden and your greatest gift, sort of like a well-slaughtered pig. Like it's just the burden of life and abundance. And there is I think that there is, insofar as a natural grace is a thing. I don't know if that's a thing, but there is that in the family. Where our kids, I can already see in them, like they have given up way more. They're way more independent of their likes and dislikes, way more independent of their consolation, their comforts than I was at a much older age.
Yes.
Just because they've had to care for each other.
Yeah.
And that's just the law of the family. It's just the natural law of the family. If things are going to degrade to a very regrettable degree, that's just the natural law of the family. And that, I think, is the seed that grows and affects the rest of your farm, your town, your county, your city, and your country.
Yeah, I think that's what I was trying to remember my train of thought. Like naturalism, you can be selective with how you're going to suffer. In natural law, things appear to you and you can say yes or no to them. And they might hurt physically, though they are building your soul and they make you happier. Like interiorly, there's no suffering there because you are being like aligned.
Yeah.
And
even if there's physical suffering.
Yeah. And because you ran this quote by me by someone that we follow, God has designed reality in such a way that the liturgy repairs and restores creation.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just have this vision of like families
Mm-hmm.
working their family farms, going to mass, getting their souls aligned because they're learning what natural law is. Because like the modern world has totally malformed our intellects, so we don't even know what it is. We're just sort of grasping. And that's how God will like rebuild topsoil. I keep coming back to it.
Yeah, I know. Restore and repair.
It's the ecological answer.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, I agree. I think we are explicitly Catholic ecologists, and the answer is the Mass, which is kind of an insane, strange claim.
And we've kind of come at it from different angles too. And like, this is just, I don't want to make it sound like this is what's working for us. It's like we've tried a few other worldviews, and this is really what's aligning our souls and just making things work for our family, and then hopefully, through education, like we're getting to know other people where this is working too, and we're like, really? Yeah. Like this is the answer.
Yeah. Which is weird because that's what's all over the old world. Like that's at least in the Western.
Know. We're just having to rediscover it.
That's just what you see.
Yeah.
That's what history shows. Mm-hmm. That the best thing that the monks can do for their land is pray all day and all night and say Mass every single day.
Have we mentioned Clear Creek Abbey on this podcast before?
I don't know. It's right over there.
We should give a little plug maybe, because
if you want to see ordered farming,
they're like illustration A.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
They've got a small dairy. They rate their subsistent by the fruit of their hands. The work of their hands.
Yes.
Out there.
So we'll link to it in the show notes, and they're right outside of Tulsa. So I know you could come to a class, and then you go make a retreat at Clear Creek Abbey.
Oh man, I would like to do that.
I know.
That'd be great.
Oh, but anyway, a lot of people do that. They make pilgrimages actually out there. It's beautiful, but it's monks praying the divine office, working the land, and there's actually a lot of families that have lived out there too, and they're doing their family thing out there, and it's wonderful.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're kind of all over the place, but hopefully there's a little bit of thread
I know.
to what we were talking about. Anything else we want to add before we close?
I think so. I look forward to building a shop and filming in there and getting everyone out to a completed shop someday. That's my task.
Do you think we'll get some azulejou in the background again?
Oh, we got to. We gotta get tile. We're getting tile. We're not gonna go white plastic. Like, don't worry.
Yeah.
We're not departing from the pattern of the last shop. We're not departing from that essential form. It will be it will be consonant with the kind of harvesting that we do.
I
still have everything.
Yeah, we brought our beautiful stove.
Brought it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And our chopping blocks and all that. Just we had to leave the tile background behind.
Yeah, and the pine.
Yeah. Thanks, Meatsmiths, for listening to our take on all things meat making, householding, and culture keeping.